Hi there, and thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to hear today's pod. It just could be our best one yet. Well, I spent some time with the fun loving, wise, and inspirational Seattle television icon, Penny LeGate. You'll hear about her life, her career, her struggles, and her unique walk with Jesus. Wow, this is a special day for sure, because I think we've been working on this get together for a year or more.
Oh, I think so, Rick. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry. He
not.
says, are you ghosting me? I said, no, I'm just out of the country right now. And oh man, yeah. I have
You
a
are
busy life in retirement, Rick.
you are busy, busy, busy. So we're talking with Penny LeGate. Let me do the official introduction. So those who are not familiar will be very shortly, because I'm going to give it just a brief overview, and then we'll slip into details and the whole story of what Penny LeGate is all about right now. So first of all, and this is some of this stuff is new for me too. Penny, for those of you who don't know and are new to the area or whatever, she's like a Seattle television icon.
Oh,
She's been on the airwaves in Seattle on television for probably 2 decades anyway.
oh,
We're going to
yeah.
talk about that.
A
Huh?
lot longer, I'm afraid.
A lot longer. Okay, good. Well, that's good. See, we'll learn even more from this
Yeah.
podcast. But you were born in Kearney, Nebraska.
I was born in Columbus, Nebraska.
Okay.
hmm And then I
Well,
spent most of my formative years in a cow town out in the western part of Nebraska in the Panhandle called Ogallala, Nebraska.
oh my gosh,
Say
really?
that fast 3 times.
Well, gee, I guess where I got Kearney was there was a television station in Kearney, and you had your first
Oh, yeah,
entree
that's right.
into television as an intern
Yeah.
at the
And
station
Rick,
in
we say
Kearney.
Carney, just saying it's Carney.
Oh, it's
Even though it looks
Kearney.
like Kearney. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
We in
thank you for
Nebraska
that.
want to like mess people up with our pronunciations.
Okay, so now it's Kearney. Good deal.
Kearney,
And I
Nebraska.
looked that
Yeah.
up. I just wanted to see. I couldn't believe a city I'd never heard of had a
It
television station.
does, the Nebraska Television Network. It was my first gig as an intern, coming out of J school, in between my junior and senior year. And what was so cool about that little station is, of course, I knew nothing. I had only declared my major in journalism late in my junior year because I wanted to be a marine biologist, and there weren't a whole lot of marine biology programs going on anywhere near Nebraska. So,
Yeah, right
yeah.
in the heartland, you don't find a lot of oceans, right? Yeah.
Oh, not a lot of whales, but anyway, so I switched to journalism, and I got this internship, and my parents had just moved to this town, so it was quite convenient. But here it is, the anchor man and me basically putting on the newscast every day. And I got to write for the anchor man. I was the weather girl. I shot, I know this is really aging me, Super 8 film
Oh
for our
my.
stories and hot spliced it. Some people may remember Super 8 film. So I did everything. I was a shooter, an editor, a writer, a on camera person. It was
As
awesome
as an intern.
as an intern. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah. So I
crazy.
felt very lucky.
But from Kearney, then you spent time in a few spots. You were in Omaha, Wichita, Pittsburgh, but you really settled here in the Great Pacific Northwest when you came out in 1986 to be a
That's right.
co-host of Evening Magazine. Then you spent several years, I think 13 or more, at
Mhm.
KIRO as a morning show anchor. But
Yes.
let's go back and start with you as young Penny
hmm
in Nebraska. Mom, dad,
Yep.
siblings. Tell us about
Yeah.
that. Was there
Yes.
church in your life back in those
Right.
days?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Nebraska is a very religious place, and almost everybody is affiliated with some sort of church. And it's unheard of if you don't go to church. So, my mother was raised Lutheran, but my dad was Methodist, so we all became Methodists growing up. And I went to church school, Sunday school. I went to some, weekends, not weekends, but I went to summertime Bible camps. I did all that stuff growing up. And my mother was quite religious, but not in what I'd call an oppressive way. She wouldn't invoke the name of Jesus like, oh, remember Jesus loves you, or remember Jesus is going to be mad if you steal something. I mean, she was just very quiet about her faith, but it was deep. And she was a great witness for living, for Christ, because she was, I swear, an angel on earth.
Hmm.
Beautiful woman, inside and out, took care of so many people, just full of love, never an angry word. She was a dream human, really. So yeah, I grew up in the Methodist church, and
What a
we
great
just
model. What a great model for you.
yes, no, she was. She really
Yeah.
was.
And did you have it, brothers,
Oh
sisters?
yes, I did. I had an older sister and a younger brother. Neither of whom seemed to be as interested in church as I was. And when I was in high school, we had a really cool group of kids that hung out, and we had a youth group that we'd go to every Sunday. It was mixed denominations, mixed, Catholics, Lutherans, Episcopalians, whatever. And we young kids would get together on Sunday evenings, I think, and have a lecture with somebody or talk or whatever. And it was mostly social, really, as
Yeah.
teenagers. But we were, I think, an unusually curious group of youngsters from Western Nebraska. And we started questioning a lot of the stuff that was in the Bible. We were asking questions of the people who would come to talk to us, different ministers or, social workers. You know, did Christ really, rise again? You know, is it possible that a virgin, can, you know, give birth? And, we just really challenged each other and our own beliefs, and I think a lot of us struggled with it. I think that we felt we grew up being, I don't know if the word's indoctrinated, but you just grow up in the church and you hear about the church and you go to church and believe in Jesus and you learn to pray and sing hymns, and but when you get to be about 16, 17, you start saying, is this stuff for real? I mean, you know, and we actually started, this is pretty cool. We opened up a little storefront space in downtown Ogallala. And it was right on what was Highway 30 at the time, and the interstate, I think, had already opened by then, so it kind of bypassed the little town. But anyway, we opened it up and we manned it at different hours. We called it the Ark, and it was a place where travelers could come and get something to eat, hang out with.
Wow.
I know, isn't this cool for Ogallala, Nebraska? And mostly we talked about faith-based questions, and it was really cool.
Wow.
So
That
when we
is,
had no visitors, we'd just sit around and debate stuff. So then,
so
I know I'm like taking over your interview here, Rick, but I'm sorry if I'm running with it.
it's
So,
it's all about you. It is all about you today. That's I'm loving it.
so anyway, then I went on to college, and I was still very interested in being a disciple for Christ. But a lot of my friends had gone real fundamental into a church called the Berean Fundamentalist Church. And a lot of people that I went to high school with started gravitating towards that church and going to that church. And I just didn't feel like I was a fundamentalist at all. So anyway, I went to a lecture one night of Campus Crusade for Christ, and I joined that organization. And Lord, it was really hard because they give you this little booklet, and they made me go like to the student union and just walk up to complete strangers with this little booklet, and
Oh.
hi, my name is Penny. It's like a Jehovah's Witness, right? And it's like, do you have a few minutes? And then I try to give him my spiel with my little booklet about Jesus and da 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 and saving you and then. And luckily, most people in Nebraska are kind and will listen if they're not studying too hard. Most these are students. And then I just couldn't do it anymore. It just was not me to just walk up on people, cold call if they're
Yeah.
studying in the union and say, hey, let's talk about Jesus. So, um, I finally decided to leave Campus Crusade for Christ, and that was it.
Hmm.
So, um, so then I just sort of wandered the great wilderness for a long time,
Yeah.
by faith. Hmm.
Let's jump back into your broadcast career because I'm intrigued by what happened from the internship in Kearney. And then just give us a quick bounce from one station to the next station to the next station that brought you to Seattle. How did that all happen?
Hmm. So after I graduated, I went and got a master's degree at Indiana University in communications, and I finished my master's, and I got an instant invitation to go to, believe it or not, Indiana Bell Telephone Company. Now, this was before the baby bells were all, broken up, and there were 7,000 people that worked for this company in Indianapolis, and they asked me to come and do a maternity leave stand-in for a woman who was a producer. These guys had the most state-of-the-art television operation you've ever seen. So my job during this maternity leave, which was almost 10 months, 11 months or something, it was almost a year, was to produce in-house videos, to go out and interview people about interesting things that people at Bell Telephone might find interesting. And I hosted my own little show called Newsview for that year, and I got some experience, and got to do interviews, and then I went on and went to Pittsburgh, and I worked for a big television station, very well known, called KDKA Television. It was part of the Westinghouse group. For people who know the broadcasting business, that was a big group that very powerful stations all over the country. And I just started as a lowly news writer and in the newsroom, and worked my way up to associate producer in the newsroom, then producer, then like kind of special projects producer. So I was doing like little mini documentaries and doing special expanded. This is back in the day when we could do like a 5-minute story on some local subject, unheard of now. And I rapidly became frustrated just sitting in a newsroom in the basement, typically. Rick, you probably remember back in the day, all newsrooms, right, at least for television, were down in the basements of buildings. And you had no idea if it was snowing, sun out. It was just like a prison. And so I'm looking around and I go, okay, who are the two people that are getting out of here on a daily basis? Two people were.
You were looking away for getting out of there, right?
Get out of the newsroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reporters and the photographers. Now, my entry into television was never designed to be an on-camera person at all. I was really worried because I'm blonde and I'm, a young woman from Nebraska with blonde hair and just kind of a goofy personality. I thought, I am never going to succeed on the air because I'll just be stereotyped. It's like, you little blonde, I want to be on television. I want to be on TV. And so I thought I can't be a photographer though, because back then they were shooting these big giant video cameras with a separate battery pack of all these cells that went around, and then separate recording. And the tapes were, remember, they were like 8 inches long by 8 inches, these big 3/4 inch video cassettes. So the only people who were photographers were men, big men.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, what the heck? I'm going to be a reporter. So then I went from that. I started to do some reporting, and then I went to another station in Pittsburgh to further that part of my career, the on-camera part, and writing, reporting. And then I got an offer to come to Seattle. No, wait, sorry, not Seattle, Wichita, Kansas. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a little tiny town compared to Pittsburgh. I don't want to go backwards, because in our business, the bigger the market, the bigger the city, the more progress you're allegedly making.
Yeah.
So, but I went because I had an opportunity to host a daily live talk show called Kaleidoscope. Isn't that the cutest little name?
Kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope.
Yes, I love it.
With so many colors of different things. But yeah, I did that for 3 years, and I really learned on-camera craft. And as a live television show in Wichita, Kansas, let me tell you, you didn't have like exactly like the top, stars coming through on their book tours or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? We weren't getting Paul McCartney. We were getting, people who are on the, doing the small town circuits, where they were musicians or whatever. I did it 3 years, had a blast. And then King TV in Seattle called me up and asked me to audition for this new show they were going to do called Evening Magazine. So that was in 1986. And I prayed hard. Jesus, let me have this job in Seattle. I want to live in Seattle. Please, 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 please. And they hired me.
Wow. Yeah. And that's a big leap.
Well,
especially to be hosting your own show
mhm.
in literally prime time for TV news in a big market that's not only a great size, but just a great place to live on top of
Oh,
it all,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So you were teamed up with a guy named Brian Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
for those of us who are lifers here in the Northwest, that was a really a big deal. We had, these two great hosts with a great show in the evening. And at first, however, your content came from somewhere else, right? Your content was
Part of
shipped
it,
in, and you
part of
guys
it. Yeah.
hosted that content.
Yeah,
But
the
then that,
concept, yeah, go ahead. But yeah, the concept of the show, Evening Magazine, had been around a long time, and King, for some reason, decided late in the game of this Evening Magazine concept being around all over the country, two hosts, and then a national office in San Francisco that would all the different evening magazines from Boston and Providence, Rhode Island, and Houston, and wherever were feeding stories that were of interest from their area into the national office. And then the national office would in turn feed them back out to any of the local evening magazines that wanted to run those stories.
mm,
You didn't have to, but they were really good stories. It was like watching a national news, but was feature oriented, right?
yeah.
So yes, some of it was originally from other markets, and then we would fill in, at least a story or two a night from Seattle area.
And the two of you were so compatible on the air. There was so much love between the two of you. I
Yes.
often wondered if that was real. What the real relationship was with Brian Tracy and yourself, because on air it seems so natural and so uplifting. So tell me the inside scoop on that.
Yeah. So I first met Brian. Uh, I had gotten picked up at the airport by a limousine. I'm like, oh my God. Then they picked me up and they said, we're going to just wait here because we got another person coming in to audition. And it was Brian. And so what they did is they auditioned three women and three men in different combinations, all together watching each other. Can you imagine how tense
Wow.
that was? So
Yeah.
anyway, so Brian slides into the back of the limo, immediately hands me his card. And he goes, yeah, here's my card. Brian Tracy Productions from back east. I'm like, oh, wow, this guy's like a
Oh,
big deal. Little did I know he was like no big deal at all. He was just Brian. And, um, very different. He's very East Coast. I'm Midwest. He's brash and uh, uh, forward, and I learned to hold my own with that whole team, and we all got along incredibly well. It was kind of magical actually, and because we traveled all over the Northwest, Rick, to every corner of the state and then beyond in a little van all day long, and we were out on the road all the time. And we became so close that a lot of people thought we were married. But no, it's just like I told his wife, I said, Joanne, I said, don't, that's his wife. I said, don't compliment yourself. I don't want your husband. He's like, are you sleeping with my husband? I'm like, no, no, I'm not. Don't have to worry. I'm not attracted to your husband. But anyway, we just got along great. We had a great ability to help each other and kid each other, and it was just kind of a magical pairing.
yeah, and it showed up on the air every night. It was quite special.
Thank you. We're
When
still good friends.
that was my next question. Do you still keep
Mhm.
in touch? Yeah.
Yeah, he lives in Fort Lauderdale now,
Okay.
and he's mostly retired. And he and Joanne are down there, and we talk often, and we still talk about important things in our lives. And he knows me like a lot of people will never know me. It's like a parent knows you like no one else will know you.
Yeah.
We went through a lot of stuff together, good and bad.
Oh man, that does my heart good to know that wasn't just a facade on the TV that I was watching, that
No,
that was a real deal,
no,
and it
no.
still is. So I love that.
Yeah.
Did
Not that he couldn't be a total pain in the butt. Let me just tell you that.
Let's go with that too. And then he had his share, and I would have to do this in a podcast with him, but he had his share
Yeah.
of problems here in Seattle after evening
Yes.
with the whole duck problem.
Oh, just
And,
tragic.
yeah, and that just had to destroy because it was off and running. It was going smooth. It was a great deal, and then all of a sudden the accident, and it all
Yes.
blew up. So
Yes. For people who don't know, there was an axle that gave way on so these World War II vintage ducks, they're called DUKW, was their acronym in World War II. And they were these boats that had a front that dropped down and dropped. You've seen those pictures always from D-Day when they're unloading people. Those were actually Higgins boats on D-Day, but they look very similar, and you can drive them, right? So you can drive them off a bridge or whatever, and they're amphibious vehicles used to carry troops. So he used these old vehicles to create a wonderful tour around Seattle. So
that actually went into the water, which was very
yeah, it
cool.
did. Yeah, that's right. It's cool. It was on the land and on the water. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But then the accident kind of messed all that up. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's talk more about Penny.
Okay.
So you then kind of in terms of broadcast after your stint at KIRO, was that kind of the end of your on-air experience in Seattle?
Yeah, pretty much. I continued to work for Seattle Channel and host some of their shows and do longer form stories. But yeah, pretty much. Although I'm still doing a lot of emceeing and traveling on international humanitarian projects. So that continued.
Including the Orphans Africa auction about 4 or 5
Yes.
years ago that you were the host, thanks to you, because I was on the board and I asked Penny, hey, could you do this? And by golly, she was there. She was there for us. So then
Yeah.
the podcast, is there life in the couple of Dusty Muffins pod?
Oh, yes. So now, there's another very feisty broadcaster retired here in the Seattle area by the name of Julie Blacklow. And Julie is an award-winning, hard-nosed, amazing writer, reporter, and friend, and in person. And we hooked back. I knew Julie. We worked at King. I mean, I was in the programming department. So for people who don't know, there's like entertainment part of a TV station, and then there's more the news part, and they're very separate. So she was in news and I was in programming. And then when I went to KIRO, we were both in news together, and she was at KIRO as well for a while. So we worked together just peripherally, but knew each other, respected each other. And then she wrote a book called Fearless, a memoir, which is absolutely, I can't plug it enough. If you want a great read, especially about everything that's happened in Seattle and all the people she's covered and all the crazy things that's happened to her, including attempting suicide. I mean, she's very honest about her life, her ups and downs, the tragic stories she covered, the funny stuff. Anyway, so she and I hooked up with her again at a book reading for her book. I thought I'm going to come out and support Julie. So I showed up and we started talking, and I don't know, I felt a connection to her. It was like love at first sight, like between a man and a woman, or it doesn't have to be a man and woman, but between two people. And not romantic love, but I just thought, wow, she's really cool. I should hang out more with her. So then I went to her second book reading, and I started reading her posts on Facebook, which were eloquent and heartrending and honest and authentic and right down my belief path. And she is an artist, so she'd paint these pictures and she'd talk about Ukraine or, what was going on, with shootings. I mean, everything. And I just texted her one day. I said, we should do a podcast. And she said, you're on. So we got together with another old radio guy from Seattle. Well, he's not necessarily old, but
He's pretty old.
Yeah, well, he is old.
He'll cut this out.
Clem Daniel, he'll cut it out. You can't cut this out, Clem. Yeah, another old geezer in radio. Clem Daniels, and he became our audio engineer, and we just started in. We had no money or anything, and we just started talking about stuff because we had so much to talk about. So it's called A Couple of Dusty Muffins. If people want to look for us, we're on all almost all podcast platforms. And
And there's quite a nice library of interviews and
oh, thank you.
conversations that are
Yeah,
there. If you've
yeah,
never seen any of them, you might want to spend some time and see all of them.
yeah.
So yeah,
Something for everyone there. Yeah, we have
that's
35 episodes in the can so far, and we talk about everything.
let's jump back quickly now because I want to integrate the Christian element in this long broadcast career that you had.
Mhm.
Was Jesus a part of that? I know there was the prayer, can I get the job in Seattle?
Mhm.
Um, to Jesus. And he said that kind of lightly, but I'm sure that there was probably some serious prayer going on there.
Yeah.
Anything else along that journey that your Christianity surfaced or became a part of who you were and what you did in broadcasting?
Yeah. Boy, that's a big question. And I think, I have not been the perfect practicing Christian through much of my, I would say, childbearing years. And um, I was married to the father of my children was not a Christian. And so um, it kind of just fell by the wayside for me, even though I never lost my belief. I just didn't think about it that much. I didn't apply it very much to my life. Um, and as life went on, I realized that I was just felt this calling, soft calling. Uh, remember when John Denver was, listening to KGOD on the radio, and oh God, he turns
Yes.
on the radio and it's this is KGOD. Hi, what are you doing with your life? Oh my gosh, that was a funny movie. Anyway, I digress. But anyway, so yeah, I think I felt this calling always, and that I needed to renew my faith, to read more, think about it more, pray more. And um, there have been certain pivotal points in my life where, Christ has been way more faithful to me than I have been to him. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Isn't isn't that how he works?
That's how he works. Exactly.
How he
Yeah.
works. Yeah. So, um, as you were saying, you won't find a lot of me in the public eye talking about Christ. But what I do is I live it kind of quietly like my mother did, but I always love to talk about it with anybody who wants to ask me. And so I feel like my faith is at work every single day in the way I choose to live my life. And that means taking the talents that I have, if I do have any as a writer, producer, or MC, or whatever, that I can apply the talents that I've developed or been given to help those that are down and out, to shed light on issues like the children of Uganda who were being abducted by this warlord and taken captives as child soldiers, and exploring these issues, in depth, and bringing enlightenment and hopefully money and awareness so that some of these situations could be changed. Polio is one of them. I've been all over the world on polio projects, and I feel like Christ is very involved as one of the people or one of the forces walking with all these people who are going hut to hut, you know, um, church to church, vaccinating children with the vaccine. I see it in action. It's all about action with me. I see it happening, and I've been witness to it. And my faith, I think, is what allows me to see it as divinity in action, in people, and the people that are serving, and in the fact that there is an outreach at all.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, and I think you're what you're talking about being the hands and feet of Jesus, and those people that you talk about have been, but that's kind of as I am seeing now where you're at. That's how you want to express your faith in Jesus is through doing stuff, being actively involved in doing his work for him out in the community. The polio thing is legendary. I mean, you've been, I don't know how many countries, but many, many, many countries, helping in that regard, raising money, raising awareness on the ground with these folks that are working to eradicate polio. Some people think polio's gone, but it's not gone. It's
No.
thanks to you and others, it's pretty much getting there, but not gone. And then there was the story of you and a doctor from the Tri-Cities, Washington, who gave sight to the blind, which was like, whoa. I mean, talk about an act of Jesus. So
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Oh my gosh, Rick, this was one of the most stunning humanitarian experiences I've had. It was in a town called Dembi Dolo, which is on the border of Sudan. It's in Ethiopia, and very impoverished area. And for some reason, nobody really knows why Ethiopia has a higher rate of blindness than any other country in the world. And people who are blind in Ethiopia, I mean, it's very difficult just to survive in Ethiopia anyway. But if you're blind, you're really at the mercy of having somebody in the family take care of you. So what happens is not only does a blind person suffer, but the grandchild, perhaps, whose life is completely relegated to taking the hand of a grandfather and leading them everywhere through their lives. So two people are really highly affected by blindness in Ethiopia. So anyway, this doctor from the Tri-Cities, I had heard of his trip, and somehow I can't really through another guy that I know I love, now deceased, God bless him, connected me to him through Rotary. And I'm not a Rotarian, but I've done a lot of Rotary projects around the world. And I found out he takes teams of people over to Ethiopia every year and does cataract surgeries. And so I said, let's go. I want to go. I want to go. So I went and I videotaped how he selects the people. And you cannot believe it, Rick. When they find out that an eye doctor is coming to possibly bring sight, you cannot believe the thousands of people. I just get goosebumps thinking about that. Thousands of villagers who walk 3 and 4 days, hoping they'll be chosen.
Oh, wow.
And some of them, of course, aren't suffering from cataracts. They have other issues that he can't fix. So it's heartbreaking to watch him say, I can't, through an interpreter, I can't fix you. But anyway, what he does is he gets like this cattle line going, man. And he when he starts to operate, they scrub down a school that's like made out of cinder blocks, and they get an ER room ready to go. And they bring these people in one by one by one by one. They've been pre-screened, and they come in. He literally shoots them in the eyeball with a needle to numb up their eye. That's going on. Then another one gets in the chair and he does the cataract surgery. He's like bang, bang, bang. And he does hundreds of them in just a matter of a few days. Okay, so then this is what's really dramatic, right? They all have to come back for their follow-up and their eyes are patched over. And they come in and he removes the bandages. And it's like they fall on their knees and they're crying and they're holding their heads and weeping and praising God and praising Jesus and just overcome with that gift of sight. And it's you just, I don't know, I don't even have words for how emotional it is to watch these people regain sight after perhaps being blind all their lives, some of them.
Man,
So, wow. I mean,
what an experience.
I just get goosebumps. I mean,
Yeah.
where is the gift here? For them or for me? I mean, I feel like I'm right. I mean, it's to see something like that too.
Yeah. Are those videos available anywhere as far as you know? Some
Yes,
of
yes.
the
I'll have to
stuff that,
find where we'll find a link for you to find those videos.
oh,
Yes,
that'd be great. That would
incredible.
be absolutely great.
Yeah, incredible.
Well, so all of these things that you've done, Penny, and been exposed to and been a part of are kind of tell the story of not just what you've done, but really who you are. And but probably the most powerful, um, project mission in your life has been your Mara project, and that touches. It just touches everyone in their heart. And if you could just help us with the story of your daughter Mara and her struggles, and then what the Mara project is all about.
Yeah. Thank you for asking about it. So I have two daughters. I don't say past tense. I had two daughters. I have two daughters. And my eldest daughter is now 33. Her name is Molly. She's a very successful environmental scientist. And my second daughter came along 3 years after her. Her name was Mara. And great life growing up. Lacked for nothing. Um, had a happy marriage, a nice home. We got to travel. They had plenty of food. They got to take ballet lessons or, softball, whatever they wanted to do. We had a really great life. But somewhere, as Mara went through puberty, Rick, she started to develop a lot of anxiety and depression. And as a parent, you don't know if that's just the angst of going through puberty and all the things that kids go through anymore, and the bullying and the, being left out. And so we were trying to weather that with her as we would any teenager. And it just progressed. And so we had a psychologist working with her to try to counsel her and stuff, but she was just so full of angst all the time. And she was, I think, highly, highly sensitive. And she carried all the sorrows of the world in her heart. She was one of those people. And I said, if like a girlfriend of hers was sick or had a boyfriend problem, she'd like, oh, Mom, I'm really worried about Susan because she's no, no, no. I said, honey, I appreciate the fact that you care about her and that you're trying to help her. But I said, you can't angst over it and worry about it and make it your whole life. I said, give it the energy you need for a while and then compartmentalize it like a train. You got it over here, and then maybe you can get back to your schoolwork or back whatever to, other parts of your life. And she says, Mom, I can't do that. So as her life progressed, she turned to drugs and alcohol to ease her pain. And she went from alcohol and pot, so the typical gateway drugs, to huffing. I don't know if you know what huffing is, where you
Yeah.
suck on those, air, that compressed air that you clean computer keys with and stuff, which is very dangerous. You can die instantly from that, by the way. To pills, and she was diagnosed with ADHD, and so we tried to help with that. We had all kinds of doctors and everybody working with her to try to make her happy, and we just couldn't. And it eventually went from a cocaine addiction. We sent her off to 3 months of treatment, a lockdown facility in Arizona, because, by the way, in the state of Washington, children who are age 14 are allowed to walk away from treatment.
Really?
Their parent, yeah, they can just
Oh
walk
my
away.
gosh. Oh wow.
So, and we knew she wouldn't stay, so we sent her to Arizona for 3 months. She came back and she was a little better, but she was still in total denial about the severity of her problem. And she rapidly escalated to OxyContin and then heroin, and then
Mm.
injecting heroin. And as her illness progressed, she um, she came fully to the point where she recognized, she said, Mom, I'm a drug addict. Those are her words. I don't like to use those words, but she would say that. And she said she went into treatment again on her own accord. When she was clean and sober. I don't like to use the word clean either, because that indicates that somebody's dirty. She was sober in recovery for almost a year. And she'd come home to live with me because she had been living with her boyfriend. She's now just 19, and was holding down a job, doing pretty well, talking about going to college. She graduated from high school in time, kind of miraculously, from all of the issues she had and the schools she'd missed. And she was in an AA program, Alcoholics Anonymous. She liked that program rather than Narcotics Anonymous, and was working her 12-step program very diligently and trying to get better. And She relapsed one night, went out and bought heroin and overdosed and died.
Mm.
And
Man, oh man.
yeah,
And you, during all of this time, were you? I'm guessing you were praying like nobody's prayed before.
I
Relied,
prayed.
tried
I
to.
I prayed and prayed and prayed for her. I prayed and prayed and I said, prayed for her and I prayed for me to know what to do, how to help her. Was there things I hadn't thought of? Clearly I've learned a lot about addiction since her death. I thought I knew a lot about it before. And I I trusted I trusted that she was in Jesus's arms
Hmm,
and that he had her safe. And there was some relief in that, I guess.
yeah.
Some some joy in that actually that she was no longer suffering. And I felt that. I felt it very strongly that she was at peace. It's like she was telling me, Mom, I'm okay. I'm okay. And that was in 2012. And and I get messages from her a lot. And I know there's an afterlife and I know that she's in a good place. I wish she hadn't gone so quickly. And I wish there was more I could have done to make her life tolerable, I guess. But we're all on our own path here, aren't we? And as
Yeah.
much as we'd like to think we control our children, we don't. We give birth to them, we diaper them, we feed them, we send them to certain schools and feed them whatever and introduce them to sports or whatever. And then they grow up and they have their own lives, they make their own choices. And so
How's is has Molly? How has Molly handled it through all of this? Because it's got to be tragic for her as well.
yes, I think Molly had so many things that she wished she had done differently too. She and Mara would get at each other. But I think she's made peace with herself finally. And
But,
I think Mara actually came to her in what I call a breakthrough dream. I've had people from the other side break through twice. Not Mara, but I think Molly did shortly after she died. And Mara was sitting on the end of her bed, just looking at her kind of curiously. And Molly said, Mara, what are you doing? And she says, I had no idea you loved me this much. So I think Molly has learned that we say we love you. We don't end up in an argument and hang up the phone and let that go or those kinds of things. But yeah, Molly's coping well. She's learned to be able to talk about it. She's a person that holds all of her cards very close to her vest. So she's learning too. She's had some good therapy as well. So
and that's what I admire so much. One of many things that I admire you so much about is that you have chosen not to keep it buried, to actually use it as an opportunity to make a difference in the area where Mara struggled,
mhm.
and that is, in essence, what the Mara Project is all about, right?
That's right. Exactly right. Yes.
Uh,
Thank you. I kind of never talked about the Mara Project, but shortly after Mara died, we had a lot of donations for some sort of memorial. And I just kept telling people I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know I was going to build a well in Africa and name it after her. I didn't know. And then I decided to start the Mara Project to lift up other kids like Mara who are troubled, who are struggling. And it doesn't necessarily mean with drugs, but like in her little alternative high school she ended up graduating from, there were kids in there that didn't have parents at all. There were kids in there who were immigrants and couldn't speak English and couldn't really survive well in a major high school setting. There were kids who had a child at home trying to get through high school. So we provided scholarships for these kids to a program where they could work in community service for a summer, earn money, earn how to show up because a lot of these kids didn't have any sort of like structure at home, and they earned a summer job. They had a summer job that paid them well, and they learned responsibility. And we had bus cards for them if they didn't have a car or whatever, bought phones for them, and it was pretty successful. It was hard though. I realized after a couple of years of doing that that it was really hard to manage other children who don't have structure. And and I just felt like we had been successful, but I thought, let's take this and really go head to head with the heroin problem. And so I had started to read about various police departments across the country carrying um, um,
Narcan.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, Clem, you have to cut that out. I'd read about various I'd read about various police organizations carrying Narcan or naloxone, which is, if you don't know, people listening, it's a an amazing drug. It's like you shoot it up your nose, you squirt it up the nose like you would an Afrin spray or something, and it will open up air passages for people who are in an active overdose situation from opioids. And we had found out the Seattle Police Department was not equipped. This is back in 2014, something like that, 15. So I started having meetings with the Seattle Police Department and saying, just worked my way up the ladder till I got to Kathleen O'Toole, who is the chief. And I said, we want to buy Narcan for your police officers to carry. And she goes, let's do it. So it was just that simple with her. I mean, everybody's like, well, we need to talk over with the fire department because it's kind of their jurisdiction and we don't want them to feel like we're stepping there. And blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Fire department was on board. We got everybody on board. We bought all the Narcan kits, and I went to the training of the first group of bike officers who were going to carry Narcan, which is the bike officers patrolled downtown Seattle, Pioneer Square, kind of the hardest hit areas for people with addiction, and also the University District, which is the University of Washington for people who don't know what I'm talking about, which is also has a lot of problems with drug addiction, people on the streets overdosing, and homeless people. So I just stood up and I said, thank you so much for being willing to carry this and to be willing to use it. And I said, I know that a lot of you probably aren't very happy about it because I know that addiction is a big problem for you on the streets. I mean, people who are addicted steal, they litter alleyways and sidewalks with needles. They, most of them are homeless or, have mental health issues too. And I said, I know that a lot of what you have to do is deal with people who are suffering from addiction. And it's really, it's daunting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not fun, I'm sure. And I said, but the next time you see a child, a young woman lying on a bench out of it, just remember it could be your child, or it could be your mom, or it could be your sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it affects everybody. And that was my main messaging after the Narcan project, was just to go out and tell everybody. I just wanted to destigmatize addiction, and I wanted to not make it a blame game. And that these people, Myra used to say, Mom, we're not throwaway people. And they're not. These are all people, for whatever reason, have become addicted to something that they can't control anymore. So they could be victims of abuse. A lot of them are. A lot of them are homeless. A lot of them have mental health issues, and who are we to judge? Here we are, being Christ-like, right?
Yeah.
Christ did not judge people. You cannot judge them. You don't know their stories.
Everybody is so quick to be the judge, and yet we're not designed to be the judge at all. So exactly true. So so that is the Mara project now continuing on in that regard. It's still raising funds and providing Narcan to police officers. Is that going on as of today?
Yeah, so the Mara Project still has money in the bank. After so in about 2016 or 17, maybe 18, I have a hard time remembering all the dates, Rick. My therapist I've been with for years and years said, I think you need a break. She says, every time you go out and speak, you rip the scab off. And she said, I just think you need to take some time off. So I have. And like I said, I still have this money in the bank. I have some projects in mind. to possibly use it on. Um, Narcan now is available over the counter, so
Yeah.
anybody can buy it, and I'd recommend that everybody carry it. All schools should have it. I still will go and talk to kids or certain programs if I'm asked, but since I'm not in that mainstream anymore, it's quieted down.
Yeah.
So I'll get back. I'll get back to it, but right now I'm just taking a break.
And I kind of apologize a little bit for ripping the scab off today, but I really
No,
do
you did
appreciate
not.
your taking the time.
You know what? The scab's going to come off whether you rip it or not. I mean, it's just the nature of losing a child, right?
Yeah.
And that leads me, and that again, to one of my reconnections with Christ. Um, After losing Mara, I also lost my job, and my marriage had just ended, and so um, and I had moved from my home to a small apartment, which was fine. And all these things were parsed out in the divorce. It was not an amicable divorce. And I'd lost my daughter, and I was just reeling. I didn't know what to do with my life. And on top of that, I ended up meeting a person I thought was my dream man, and he was sociopath. He was a sociopath
Hmm.
and led me down this road where I was suicidal. Was
Wow.
happening.
Man, oh man.
I just had to stop the pain. I understand now people who feel this way. I used to think,
Yeah.
oh, that's so selfish. How could you kill yourself? There's people who need you, or whatever. I will never stand in judgment. And there were some dark, dark winter days, and I thought about suicide, and I thought about my other daughter, and I thought, I can't do that. I just can't. I can't cause her more pain. But I was just in the darkest, saddest, most bereft place of my life. I weighed about 90 pounds. I'd lost a whole bunch of weight. And I fell on the ground in the fetal position. And I just called out, help me, Jesus. Just help me. Help me. And I distinctly felt a presence with me. I was like, and how I remember it is like a hand on the shoulder. And the message was, I can't fix it, but you're not alone.
Oh man. Oh my goodness. Wow.
And that was enough. That was enough to get me back on my feet and keep going. And I think since that moment, as I said earlier, I'd kind of fallen away and it wasn't a part of my life that much, but I pray every day. I look for God in everything. I try to live the most God-like life I can, most Jesus-like, with compassion and tolerance. I'm like any other human being. I judge people. I fail miserably, but I just keep trying.
Yeah. Well, life is in a better place now for sure for you, right?
Yes.
Um, you're relaxing for one thing. You are last couple of times I've talked to you, you're going to the Galapagos Islands.
Yes. Yes.
And
I
I don't
remarried a
know much
wonderful
about the
man.
Galapagos Islands, but it sounds like paradise to me. It sounds like
Oh,
I can envision this jungly island in the middle of the
oh,
ocean. And
yeah. Yeah. Big bucket list place for me. I love
yeah,
nature, and that's where I feel closest to God is in when I'm in nature. As soon as I step outside, I find everything singing and blooming and shouting, Hallelujah! 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 Yeah, yeah, and being in the Galapagos and seeing Mother Nature at work in all her divine and beautiful ways. It
yeah,
was just fantastic. Yes, I'm in a very good place now. I feel like my daughter's in a good place. I'm married to a wonderful man, and we have a wonderful life together. So, yeah, life goes on.
This has been such an inspiration for me, and I know it will be for our audience. And to find out more about you and your career, and especially to find out about this amazing journey with Jesus and your love of God, has just been really inspiring, is all I can say.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you. It's good to see you, and you're such a great person. And thank you for doing this wonderful podcast.
All righty. Talk to you soon.
Okay, sweetie.
Well, as always, thank you so much for spending your time with us on Amazing Greats. I hope you'll share this one with your family and your friends, and maybe even pop it up on your Facebook or Twitter. That'd be great, and I'd appreciate it. Thanks so much. Until next time, God bless.